Alrighty, hey, welcome everybody.
What's up, guys?
We're super duper proud of you. We are pivoting just slightly this month, kicking off not just coaching calls, but adding a level of accountability to our Tuesday night coachings, which I think will be really, really good, honestly. And I just want to encourage everybody that's on the call to continue your consistency. And, you know, I think the thing with accountability is sometimes we have to put little things in place even to hold ourselves accountable. So even though this is external, a little bit coming from us, hopefully it will help everybody just up level slightly to be like, oh, I want to be on that Tuesday coaching. I'm going to make sure that I get my 5 days of IPA in to qualify for that call. You know what I mean? It's like, and if you get behind, I mean, one thing to remember is you're never behind, but if your daily IPA is not matching your expectation or your goal, the goal that you've set for yourself. What I do with a busy life that I have is I just double up on the days that I do have space. Because sometimes you're like literally running from dawn till bedtime and there's no like plug-in space. Maybe you're responsive in your messages or you pop a post up or you throw in some stories, but like actual concentrated IPA. If I know I'm going to be crazy busy on a day, if I know that, you know what, the next day I have some plug-in time in the afternoon, or I'm going to wake up extra early, or I'm just going to stay up after the kids go to bed and just bang it out, it frees up my brain to know, like, you know what, I can double up tomorrow if my day is crazy. So anyways, welcome everybody. Congratulations for earning this call. We will get the recording up, but it will be only accessible from those who get the link for it. So it's not just going to be on public on YouTube, just to keep this special group of us, you know. And what we're doing for our team is every week this resets. So if somebody kind of blew it, or they were sick, or they're on vacation or something last week, that doesn't have any bearing on this next week. I love that scripture that says that a righteous man falls 7 times yet rises again. And so regardless of what the past 7 days look like, or the past 7 months, we can begin anew today or tomorrow. So anyways, just a little plug for continuing consistency and earning all of these coaching calls because they are so fabulous. Okay, our topic for today. So we're gonna try this where we do some specific topic coaching where it's going to relate to a certain subject. And so today's subject is marriage, parenting, work-life balance. So Carissa has a gaggle of kids and is married. We have a gaggle of kids. Obviously, we're married, and we just know that there are, issues that can come up when you're working a business like this, in marriage, in parenting, in just the work-life flow of things. So just to encourage you guys, we are still learning. And every season is going to look a little different, right? The season that we were in when we started Plexus with 5 kids that were 10 and under and a new baby, that season is different than it is now with an almost 17-year-old and then an almost 2-year-old and now 7 kids and homeschooling more people and coming and going and kids driving and kids, in sports and different things like that. So I just want to remind everybody that I am passionate about this topic or this conversation about being successful in marriage, successful in raising and training your children, and massively successful in business. I know it's doable, it's possible, and you do not have to sell your soul or sacrifice those things most precious to you in order to get it. I just want to encourage you in that. A couple of things I want to point out. Those of you, I think most of us are coming from the same worldview in light of, our priorities being God, marriage, family, business, and also just a biblical approach to business. So I'm just going to name a couple scriptures really quickly that came to mind. One of them would be Proverbs 31. For those of you girls working in business, if you're a guy working this business, one thing I've prayed over the years for Justin is Psalm 112. Go read it, go pray it over your husband, pray it over your sons. It's a great passage of scripture, and it makes a great prayer for the men in your life. But this was pre-plexus that I started praying that over him, but it's so good. It is so good. A couple of things that I have done to help ourselves be really successful in plexus is committing our business to prayer. So that is the number one thing I would just encourage you guys. And I was just reminded even this past week of this Holy Spirit led business where you invite divine revelation, God's help with something like this, because I don't know about you guys, but a lot of days I feel like a hot mess and that maybe I'm not doing a good job in any of the areas, but I'm so thankful that we can roll that feeling and that mindset onto the creator and God of the universe, because he cares about all the things in our life. And I remember years ago doing a training or teaching my team just about my approach to my business, which was huge, massive prayers over it. And that, I just needed God to fill in the gaps for me. So a couple specific prayers that I prayed come out of Psalm 90, I think Psalm 90, where it talks about establish the work of our hands. The work of our hands, establish thou it. You guys know the end of that passage, but I've just prayed that God would establish the work of my hands, bless the work of my hands. And the second prayer, which isn't necessarily a scripture, but I prayed that he would just magnify the hours of my day because I felt very scrunched for time. And I encourage moms that are getting ready to have babies in light of their prayer life over all the details of their body getting ready to have a baby, right? And so I truly believe praying in faith, praying, believing, and praying in specifics, whether it's a birth that you're getting ready to birth experience you're getting ready to have, or something as temporal and earthy as a business. And I remember some team members expressing just, what's the word? They just expressed surprise, I think, that I would pray over my business. And I was like, just flabbergasted actually that they didn't do the same, and that wasn't just a natural response to getting gifted this opportunity. And I just encouraged them to really not, I think because they felt like it was such a trite, silly thing to ask God to help them with. I'm like, well, why not? Like, it's earthly, it's temporal, but it's an opportunity that we have to impact a lot of people. And it's really an opportunity that I want to invite God to help me with, and actually to inspire my thoughts towards who to reach out to, who to how to approach people, how to just be able to roll my burden onto God and ask him to bless it, right? So anyways, just to encourage you guys with that really fast, that's been a key to success in our business, I would say. I'm not going to talk the whole time, I promise, but I had written a few things down that I just have helped me in the area of work-life balance, marriage, kids, having babies throughout, ranking up to diamond and things like that. One of the biggest things I would say in light of work-life balance is that I view it as a flow. Okay, when you work from home, it's not going to look like you're sitting in a cubicle where you go to work and you come home from work and you don't think about work at home. This is a very different thing where it's kind of like, I don't know, well, we're entrepreneurs. It's to me taking ownership over the way we bring in income. And so that means that I'm going to be on in my brain a lot of the time, especially in the building phase. Okay, when you're first starting and when you're building up to diamond or whatever rank you're wanting to get to, is that you may feel on all the time, like your brain is constantly just going, and you're always looking for ideas and you're pivoting and shifting. Like that's normal. Like if you are viewing yourself as the CEO, the leader at the helm of the ship, you're going to be in the driver's seat more so. You're going to be the CEO, not the employee, waiting for people to tell you what to do. You're going to be just thinking, constantly being creative, seeing how you can up level in all the areas. So I view this work from home opportunity as a flow, right? It's flowing throughout the day. So it's intermingled, intermixed, and that's okay. And I know some people are like, well, time block. And I think that's great if that's what works for you. And I would definitely suggest having protected plexus hours because it will give you peace of mind. And if you can't get to your business till 3 p.m., well, guess what? At 3 p.m., boom, I get to plug in and knock the things out, right? And so that's helped me just be okay with this whole like nook and cranny idea. It's somewhat of a flow throughout the day. It's intermixed. Like Justin and I even, when we're out for dinner, a lot of times our business comes up because it's part of our life, just like ministry is part of our life and our kids are part of our life and all of that. So anyways, this business is very mixed into our life. It's part of who we are. It's not the only thing we are, but it's part of who we are. Also, I wrote down seasons. Recognize the season that you're in. You may be in a shifting season, and you may not realize it till after you're out of the season, or you may look back on the season and be like, wow, I had a baby, I built a house, I moved into a house, I started homeschooling more kids. Like that was 2020 for me. It was a lot of things. And when I came out of that season, I was like, wow, we survived. And I realize now why I felt really crazy in that season. I mean, on top of being sleep deprived and all the things, I had a long list of things that I was doing. And so the top tips for you guys would be to identify the top priority things and in this season and let the rest go. And it's going to be probably look different for each of you, but you can't have 30 things at the top of your priority list. What do we say, babe? Like five?
Five
things. Okay. And so it's be okay with saying no to good things. We had to say no to things. Well, we still have to say no to things, but it may look like yes to grocery delivery or grocery pickup. It may mean saying no to extra commitments at church. And you may say no for a season of hosting everything. I don't know if you guys are hosters. We love to host. We love to show hospitality, but in the season of building our business, we didn't have as many people over as we had previously, right? Just because that takes time. And our focus was in a different direction for a season. Yes, say yes to asking what you need. You cannot be like scarcity mindset in light of asking for what you need. Pray for it, ask for it, get creative. Like maybe you have a mom that lives next door that you trust that you would totally kid swap with, or I don't even know, maybe you have a mother-in-law that loves to spend time with grandkids, and maybe you've had embarrassment over saying, hey, would you happen to be available on Tuesday afternoons from like 1 to 3 just to come pick up the kids and take them to the park or something. Like it's okay to ask and invite people into your life. That can help you. Okay. Maybe it's saying yes to less gardening, or yes to less cleaning. Okay. I shifted a lot of the places where I was spending time and spent it on my plexus business. So maybe my house wasn't quite as tippy top clean. Maybe I wasn't gardening and cooking extensive meals like I was for that particular season, right? I simplified my cooking a ton. I still cooked healthy, but it was simplified. Maybe it looks like having a shareholders meeting with your home team, your hubby, your kids, and being like, hey, here's the scoop. If mommy's going to do this, this is what I need from you guys, and detail that out. Maybe you can delegate. You know what John Maxwell says, do, delete, or delegate. So figure out what in your life you can be doing, deleting, or delegating. And he says, if someone can do it at least 80% as good as you, let them do it. Delegate it out. Okay. We have to release some of the perfectionism that we hold on to as women a lot of times. Consider hiring or trading help. Like I mentioned about the sitter swapping. And just lastly, I put pray and get creative. Okay. Because all of us have different obstacles in different seasons. Maybe you're not in a season with little tiny babies, but maybe you're in a season with, teenager, adult kids, grandkids, and like aging parents, right? I don't know that life is ever going to slow down for us to just perfectly work our business and have no interruptions ever. But it's finding in those spaces and those times that we do have to work our business that we're really focused, but also looking to see like, where could I cut the fluff? Okay. So anyways, babe, is there anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, so just on the work-life balance idea, it's a myth. First off, it's a good way to sell books. Those books are written by people that probably have 0 kids. They're not married. They're on their own, and they can work their business all day long and then go out at night and do what they want. So However, when you start to include more people,
Mhm.
it becomes a lot more difficult. However, I don't think that means we shouldn't pursue balance
Mhm.
in those top 5 priorities in our life. We should, but there is no, just to set some of you free, maybe, or to encourage you, there is no perfect day. Like we lay out our perfect day every day, and I don't know that it's ever happened.
Mhm.
Like it's, Megan said flow, right? So it's like, so I'll just mention, I have top 5 buckets. These are my top 5 priorities that I feel that God has given me to do. One is myself. I've made myself a priority. It took me 45 years to be okay with saying that. And you need to make yourself a priority too. And so that's one. Megan is another, my second priority. Third priority is my children. Yes. Fourth priority is business and finances. And the fifth priority is community, whatever community I find myself in at the time. Now, which one of those is the most important? Well, it depends. We have 7 kids. There's a lot of, we can go from like sunny and calm to wind blowing and hurricane, in a matter of seconds. So it's constantly moving. And I think we have to have plans, and we have to be strict with those plans when it comes to a schedule. At the same time, you have to be fluid.
Mhm.
I mean, if the kid comes in and he's bleeding, you can't I'm on a Zoom, sorry, you're going to have to have one of your kids apply a tourniquet till I get out of here. I think we have to, it's the whole balance is you have to be, it's really, I'll just say this, it's really hard. If you're going to be a high performer in any area of life, whether it's business, whether it's your marriage, whether it's your exercise, whether it's your finances, whether it's your kids, whether it's your walk with God, if you're going to be a high performer in any area of life, it's really, really hard. And that's why there's 1% of people that are the best at everything. Not at everything, but like every industry or every field in life. Like the top 1% is the top 1% because they do the hard things. And when we choose to do the hard things in one area, a lot of times there isn't balance. Something suffers. If you choose to go all in on your business for X number of hours, everything else typically goes to the side. If you need to take time and just focus on yourself, it is very important. But everything else, there's consequences no matter what choice you make. Like if you're going to be a high performer in any area, when you choose to be a high performer and give it all you've got, because that's what it takes to be a high performer, all you got. But if you're trying to be a high performer in 4 or 5 different areas, it is really, really difficult. And we have to be very, very fluid in how we do it. The best thing I can come up with in any of these things is like when it's time to do the plexus work, do the plexus work. A boss in road construction taught me this a long time ago. I said, how do you do it? You're really good at work and you have a great family life. He said, when I'm at work, I work. And when I'm home, I'm home. And I thought, wow, that was pretty deep. So whatever time you do have when you do plexus.
Can I say a funny thing?
Yes.
So one of the leaders on my team said that she was leading a power hour, and the girl was like, okay, and was on with her and saying, okay, I'm cleaning my desk. And she's like, and one of the leaders said, actually, cleaning your desk is not working your business.
It's not an IPA.
That is not
Sorry.
producing income for you. And so it's interesting how what we think is working our business sometimes is actually not.
Now, when I say focus, like actual focused work, like today, my plexus business looked like this. I was in there for, I don't know, several hours. And I talked to someone in a chat group because I'm leading a chat group on Thursdays. I'm doing a training on Thursdays. So I chatted with some people on that. Other than that, I was going through receipts for our business. I was working with QuickBooks and doing uncategorized expenses, and I was updating my living trust. That's what my plexus and business time looked like today. But when I was doing it, I gave it all I had and I focused on that and I got it done. So whatever it is, the time you have with any of these areas, yourself, your spouse, your kids, your business, whatever, give it all you got for that time that you have. Don't cheat that time for whatever that priority is.
Mhm.
Don't cheat that thing or that person or that business or whatever. Give it all you got for the time you have. But like I said, just to free you up, it's really hard. It is very hard. And if you are experiencing that it's very hard to try to be excellent, you are in the right place. Because that's what I've found. It's not easy. And these ideas of like a 4-hour work week, another way to sell books. I really don't know how you could do anything well 4 hours in 1 week. Like I don't. The only way in this business that you could be excellent and have the perfect work life and live on the beach and work 4 hours a week is if you have someone under you that's working their tail off. And that's selfish. And that's something I don't want. I don't agree with that whole mindset. I could go on for a while on that, but I'm not going to. So when it comes to this balance thing, it's again, it's really hard. I think it's a myth. You just have to choose, and the time that you spend to choose on any that you spend, the time you choose to spend in any of these priority areas, just give it all you got for the time you got to work with it, and then move on, and then know when to unplug. Because it's like a juggling act. We have to know when to we have to know when to turn the call off. We have to know when to tell the kids, okay, you're fine. You've eaten. You went to the bathroom. You had a drink of water. It's time to go to bed, right? Listen, I got to move on. So it's like just knowing when to start, knowing when to work, and knowing when to stop, so you can move on to another priority.
And Brenda Martin teamed up with us for a couple of months doing some coachings with us, and she said that she doesn't do any midweek church meetings. I was like, oh, interesting. Like no women's Bible studies, no book studies. She's like, no, because my business is a priority to me, and if I commit to that, then I'm saying no to other things that are a priority to me. So I thought that was interesting.
I think another thing too, just to maybe free some people up in your mind, or maybe some guilt or shame. Business is ministry if it's done right. Like you can love and touch people more in business than you can a lot of times in a Bible study. Like you can go deeper in business. Like some of the coaching calls that we've had, I've never had a Bible study as deep as some of those calls. Like that's where you're starting to talk to people about their health issues. You're starting to talk to people about their money. You're starting to talk to people about their fears. You're starting to talk about people about lifelong patterns of bad behavior or fear or lazy. Like you're getting down to real life stuff when it comes to business. And that is ministry, in my opinion.
It's a radical thought for some people. Maybe some of you have heard of it, but like the idea of marketplace ministry, where we have a huge realm of influence because of business.
Yep.
And so it kind of rocks that whole idea of, hyper focus on church and, all of that with considering the idea that business is the biggest place to impact people for the gospel. So anyways, side note, rabbit trail, but I would also something else that came to mind is consider the season that you're in. If you're in a push season for going to your next rank, be realistic about that, because I've just seen people or observed different things. And if you're like planning to run a marathon and planning a wedding and you have all these things that you're doing that are extra, there's probably not the time to work your business like you say you want to in order to get to X rank if you're doing all those other things. Because at least from my experience, the amount of time invested it takes to really, I'm thinking jewel ranks, going emerald, sapphire, diamond, it takes time. It takes a chunk time investment to make those ranks happen. And so I would just say, if you're in the season of planning a wedding and or running a marathon or those things that just take a lot of time, it might not be a push season for you. Or if you're saying it is time to push for diamond, then my encouragement would be, well, where can you carve out the spaces? Maybe it's not time to run a marathon. I'm not saying don't exercise, but consider where are the spaces of time that you can pull out of your day to invest into your business and invest in people. So, okay, coachee. Who is our coachee? I didn't get anybody from our team that I know of.
Okay, so I wanted Taylor to speak, and we could, if you don't have anyone from your team, then we can totally pop back and forth with questions for Taylor. We can also have people in the chat just kind of share. This is such an intimate group, and so many of you have really put the effort in. So, it's fine to hear from lots of us as far as like what is when it comes to the topic of your marriage and your business, or your parenting and your business, or your work-life balance, what is a thought that causes you repeated stress, or just something, maybe a pattern or something that you keep running up against? So maybe some people can share that in the chat, and then we can address several of those, but then Taylor can maybe be our most vocal person. Taylor approached me a month or two ago and was like, this topic, I would love for you and the Goffs to host something on this topic. So I felt like, okay, well, she'd be a great person then to kind of be our coachee. So,
Perfect. You can unmute, Taylor. Hi.
Hey, I kind of have I'm clearing up a sinus infection, so I'm kind of like nasally and have clogged ears. So I can hear you guys. I'm just letting you know.
Feel better soon. That's no fun. Okay, what do you have for us? Do you have some thoughts or some reoccurring themes that keep plaguing you?
Well, the season that I'm in, I just feel has kind of been like a whirlwind. And I know you guys have coached me before, and I don't remember if I brought it up, but so much has happened to like my family in the past like 2 years, which oddly enough, like my Plexus business has actually grown substantially in these 2 years. But between it was like COVID hit, I found out I was pregnant, my husband lost his job, we moved from South Florida to Oklahoma because my brother lives there, and the cost of living was way cheaper than South Florida. And then he couldn't find a job here in his field, so ended up getting another job in a different field and took like a 50% pay cut. And now he's in like schooling to get certified in different things. And we don't have a ton of support here. We also left a church that kind of like dissolved. It was a church that we like for the first time in our marriage like really got involved and felt like God was like pushing us to do more, and like we learned more about the spirit and all this stuff within the church, and then it kind of like dissolved when COVID hit. So because of drama that happened within the office, so that kind of left us frozen too, and so we've felt hesitant like getting back involved with like serving and stuff like that within a church. But more recently I have been like pushing to get more involved in the community, and I do feel like as an introvert I have prayed a lot that like allow these moments, these events to be fruitful, because it does take a lot out of me to do it, but I know it's important. And so I do feel like God has really sent a lot of people my way in the past like couple of months in particular. It's like I prayed for it, and then different people keep popping up where I'm like, okay, I see you. But it's just been like a crazy season. My kids are early risers, man. They wake up like a lot of times it's before 6 o'clock. I have a 16-month-old and an almost 4-year-old. So one thing in particular is a lot of times I think in my head, I'm like, oh my goodness, this seems so overwhelming. And then I think of like Carissa or you guys who have like a billion children. And I'm like, then I get into this kind of defeated mindset, and I'm like, oh my goodness, I just have 2 and I feel so overwhelmed. And I feel like I can't get into a rhythm. Like, how did these people do it? Like, And I do have one child who is very spirited, and I've had a very hard time with him as far as um, attitude, and I've reached out to a lot of people. So it's just been like a whirlwind of a 2 years that I've been pouring into God in my business a lot. And again, like I said, like oddly enough, my business has grown a lot, but there's always that kind of defeated mindset of man, I wish it was growing faster, or like I wish I wasn't in this season. And so
So would you say that you're discontent with where you're at in your business? And that's somewhat stemming from feeling like, well, you mentioned the ages of your kids, but I didn't get a clear picture on like, do you feel like that they're interrupting what, like your work time, or tell me a little bit more of what you're struggling with specifically.
yeah, so like ideally in my head, I think like, oh, I'll just wake up like an hour before my kids wake up. My kids wake up spontaneously between like 5 in the morning and 6:30. I'm like, I'm not waking up at 4 in the morning to get uninterrupted time. And so that's tough for me because I feel like that's what a lot of people do. They like do that. So um and then I oftentimes feel like my husband commutes to work. And so most day, and he's on in like a full on suit and tie. And so like by the time it takes him to get ready, like go to the room and get ready and then drive an hour to work and then drive back home, I'm with the kids alone from about 7 o'clock to 6 o'clock at night. So it's like long days where I don't have help and it's just me. And then I almost feel like guilty immediately upon like the kids going to work my business because like where does my husband get time? So it's like it is finding that like balance, and I tend to do my business in the nooks and crannies, and my son does go to Mother's Day out. He just started going 3 days a week. And when he goes 3 days a week, even though I have the 16-month at home, I feel like I could do anything. I'm like, oh my goodness. Because that is the child that demands my attention at all costs. Like he has to be right there with me. He wants to do everything with me. And so when he is in school, I get so much accomplished. So that's kind of like what my schedule looks like. He's been out
Okay.
for 3 weeks, so
And
been a little.
do you have a specific like perfect plexus day vision for yourself, like or an amount of hours, or like just a little list that you work off of checklist wise? Or
So this reach out, so like our first meeting when we were doing like the 20 reach outs,
Mhm.
or touch points, my son was in Mother's Day out, and so I felt like I was able to like go and like felt so productive. I would get home, put the other one in nap, and then I would just be able to work for an hour to 2 hours like straight, and then get other stuff done around the house as well. And it's like when he's home, it is absolutely nooks and cranny. I finally got them like on an overlapping nap schedule, so I do get a little bit of nap time where I can work, but as far as like the nooks and crannies and the flow, I've noticed something about myself that I get so impatient. Because obviously a 4-year-old doesn't understand what you're doing on your phone. And like, so I find that I get impatient and I snap because I'm trying to like give every bit of brain cell power to this conversation that I'm having. Um, so I know a lot is adapting, but my ideal would be at least having like 30 minutes here and like there of uninterrupted. It's like I think I get flustered when it's just a constant flow. Like it doesn't feel like there's any uninterrupted time. And maybe that means like I put an iPad in front of him for 30 minutes and I get something done, but I I do need to find a little bit more structure in my day.
Mhm. Do you find that just talking about it is giving you ideas of
Yes.
creative ways to make that happen?
Yes.
Because I'm hearing you, I'm hearing you kind of answer some of the issues that you're having by carving out little 30-minute chunks throughout the day where you could get him creatively involved in something. Are you okay with your business looking different than someone that doesn't have littles at home?
Yeah, and I think I probably also compare it to, because I've been with Plexus for 6 years, and so I think I also compare it to before I had babies. And I
Mhm.
would, even though I was working like 50 hours a week managing a shoe store, I would come home and I would still be able to work for an hour to 2 hours at night and be perfectly fine and so focused. And um so it's also that compare game of
Mhm.
what it was to what it is now.
Mhm. Well, one thing when you first started talking, I was just thinking you're in the new mama phase. And so you're learning your own systems as a mom and as like, being home with them and figuring out all of that, in addition to juggling everything else in your life, plus your business, plus your husband. Like there's a lot going on in this season because you're figuring out what works, right? And so um so anyways, just be encouraged because you're in the thick of it. Yeah, I mean you're solo momming 2 kids for basically 12 hours a day, which is no small feat. And Justin has told me for years, he's like, being at home is a heck of a lot harder than going to work every day. He was just always encouraging to me that I'm doing a work that a lot of people aren't willing to do and being home with our kids because it's 24/7 and it's just kind of you feel like a pinball and no project, especially when you have little ones like that, no project necessarily gets completed like from start to finish in one sitting. And that's hard if you're like an achiever driven divide and conquer mode type person. um, a couple of things that have helped me. I don't know if I have the book in here, but I'm reading a book by a mom of 8. She has a morning routine one, a lunch and literature one, and then a dinner and discipleship one. And it's big print, so I've just been able to read it pretty quick. But have been encouraged just about establishing routines, establishing boundaries. Children thrive off of that, knowing what to expect. Even just rehearing some of the stuff wasn't a new concept to me, but just rehearing that it's okay to put boundaries in for our children. And one of the ideas that I thought was really fun is to like set up a couple different like Montessori type stations in your house. Use things that you already have, like do a sensory bin in one little section. Maybe you set up an area in another room where you have some tubs of toys where they're going to play in there for a specific amount of time. Maybe you'll get a baby gate. I don't know, different ideas like that. Even doing high chair time for the 16-month-old because I have a baby that's going to be 2. And I have when we start school, I have things organized for her to do in the high chair. So we're going to go from breakfast to clean up to she's in the high chair doing different activities. And so I found that Play-Doh and kinetic sand occupy small toddlers like nothing else. Manipulatives, like little stacking blocks and little zippered baggies you can get off Amazon, the little bear sets. My littler kids have loved those, and just finding some of those things that occupy them for longer than 10 seconds has been a huge lifesaver for me. And a lot of times it's just getting organized in my house and kind of pre-organizing some activities, little water paints on with a water book, even if it's just the water pens, those can be super great little time savers. I'm juggling homeschooling and early readers and high school, so I can relate in the sense of seeking to occupy small children for even just little chunks and snippets of time throughout the day, right? I have a friend that spoke at the homeschool conference and she was telling me that she's like, we just have to get creative, moms. She's like, I do my 8-year-old's reading lesson in the bathroom, in my master bathroom, because I have 2 toddlers that play in the bathtub while we do reading lesson. And so I think sometimes it's like being willing to think outside the box, and instead of always feeling like it has to be this way, this is how it's always been done. If someone comes in your home and sees how you work your business or how you do your school or whatever, they'd probably be like, what's going on in here? It's a zoo. But you're like, you know what? I'm rocking the things because my kids are happy. I'm getting stuff done. It just looks a little unconventional. So anyways, I was just thinking, getting okay with the fact that our businesses look different in different seasons, just like you said, comparing to how it used to be versus reality now, and the shifting and little pivots that you're making. So instead of having like 2 hours of just hit it time, it may look like 20-minute chunks in a couple different times throughout your day. But if you actually plan those out just on paper so that you have an idea of what you'd like it to look like, and then you can always shift it, and there's no shame. It doesn't have to be like high stress, oh my word, we're 15 minutes behind schedule. Like, we're never behind. That's something that I've learned from Emily Gibson coaching. It's like, you're never behind. God's given us plenty of time in the day to get things done, get the things done that need to happen. So do you have some questions?
Yeah,
for her?
just an idea. One thing, you might need to lower your 30-minute window standard. I don't know. I don't think, from what you explained, I don't think that that's doable. Maybe it is, maybe it's nice, but one thing, in the Army, one thing that we learned is that shoot, move, and communicate. So we have these ideas, like these romantic ideas of what combat looks like, where we just stand up like Rambo and just shoot the whole time. And it's not accurate. That whole mindset doesn't even exist. So one thing is there's shooting, and there's a lot of moving and a lot of communicating. And your business with what you've got going on may look a lot like combat. So like you may you may have to run through the house, and then every once in a while, I mean, like for you, for example, if you want to do 20 reach outs a day, let's just say that's a goal you have. I don't know that it is, but let's say it's a goal that you have. Break that up into your 11 hours instead of trying to break it up in 30-minute chunks, because I don't think the kids will let you get 30 minutes. Like, make it like 2 or 3 reach outs an hour. You're running, you're doing all the things, and you have, as you're running and doing all the things, some ideas come to mind. You have someone that comes to mind, boom, hit them with a message. Make a list of 20 throughout the day, put on the fridge, make a game out of it. And then as you message the one, check them off the list, go back to doing what you go back to the chaos of raising kids. It is chaotic a lot of times, and so, I mean, sometimes I think we have to lower the standards or the ideas we have in our mind about what this perfect time window looks like. It may not be a perfect time window. Mm-hmm. You may just have to do it on the move, hit a message real quick, put the phone down, go back to work. As you're running through a house again, hit number 2, then hit number 3, and just, it may just be on the go. Mm-hmm. Like that. You may not have some sit down time. It may not happen. Megan did a lot of her work nursing a baby on her way to Diamond. While she was doing dishes, like she would, Diamond documentaries or trainings, like that's where she found her time to do it. So
I sat down.
Creative.
I would throughout the day, like I would just pray and ask God to put people in my heart, and I would literally have little scraps of paper all around my kitchen or the house, the fridge, wherever. And then when I would sit down and nurse the baby, I would take the hit list, and like, it's not hard to nurse a baby and like voice message people. It's really not hard, but it takes a little bit of intentionality and pre-planning. Mm-hmm. And this whole idea of guilt about your kids seeing you on your phone, why do you have to be guilty about that? I would get curious about why that's a guilty thing. Now, your threshold for when you've been on too much, but also you can explain to your children that you are a very successful business lady because of your phone. And so like, hey, get your computer, like maybe give them like one of those big calculators. My kids love to like pretend they're doing their computer work, or say, mommy's going to do some work. You bring up your chair, mama's going to nurse the baby, and you do your work. And so then I'll get them like papers, construction papers, scissors, all the things, right? And let them do their work. So I don't think that we have to separate our kids all the time from them being part of the work thing. Mm-hmm. So that may give you guys some perspective on, it can look like they're part of it. Your kids, a lot of people hear my kids playing piano, yelling, running, playing, like find out what your kids love and go do it. Like get some stuff from the dollar part at Walmart or the Dollar Tree and like let them create with chalk outside. My kids have a blast doing chalk. I can send like 5 to 10 messages while my kids are doing chalk or while my kids are in the bathtub. That doesn't mean that I'm like completely unengaged and not paying attention to them.
Right.
But like, it's not hard if you know who you're going to message to have your kids occupied with a couple of fun things while they're playing, and you blitz out a couple messages. Also, I get frustrated when my expectations are different than my reality. And so you may explore what feels frustrating, actually detail it out, because when you actually write it down, it's probably not 100 things. It's probably like 3 to 5 things that are the frustrating items. And then look for solutions around those things. And maybe invite your husband's perspective too, because sometimes the solution is actually really simple. It's just that in our world, we don't think of the solution like someone that's really black and white thinks of the solution, you know? Yeah. Taylor, what are your thoughts on some of those things that we mentioned?
I feel like so often my personality just needs, it's like a lot of times I know what I need to do and I just need to be told. Like Carissa messaged me. She's like, this is the topic. Are you going to do it? I was like, well, I haven't. I was like, I would literally have to do 6 days in a row. And she's like, well, I think you should really be on it. I'm like, okay, I guess I'm doing it. So it's just like, I had already given up in my head because I had like 2 kids sick and I got sick and my husband and I were frustrated at each other. And so I'd already given up. And so when she texted me and she was like, okay, well, I think you really enjoyed the topic. And I was like, okay, I guess I'm doing it. It's like, I feel like sometimes like that's all that I need is someone to be like, okay, this is what you need to do. And I'm like, okay, you're right.
And well, and also knowing when is enough. Like when you're in charge of whatever it is, for me, it can be homeschooling. It could be some sort of involvement, like being part of leading the children's ministry thing for a particular month. Like, where's the end? Like, you could make it as big as and elaborate as you have time to do, right? And so I think with our plexus work in a busy season or with children with littles, sometimes you're like, you know what, I did the high five today. Check, I worked my business. And you go to sleep and you have peace and you bless your husband and you pray over your children and it was a good day, right? Instead of always having this almost discontent, like I didn't do enough feeling, and like pre-deciding what is enough and then being okay with that, you know? I don't know if that helps release anybody from self-induced pressure or, you know, that kind of thing, but that's helped me as someone that tends to be a little overboard sometimes with achieving all the time. I'll pop the link for those booklets. They're actually really good. Megan Schreibner and her husband talked at the homeschool conference, and I ordered her both her marriage kit and their parenting one, but those little books were so good. I'll see if I can find the link real quick.
A couple thoughts that I wrote down to chime in, and I'll throw them out there as just questions for reflection. But reflect on, not just tonight, but reflect throughout the week on, where am I arguing for my limitations instead of arguing for my solutions? That was a really thought-provoking question that a coach asked me on a call, because I was explaining to him, it's hard for me because this is hard for me because, and he just stopped me and said, why are you arguing for your limitations? And we all tend to do that, but you can just reflect on that and ask yourself, okay, can I just promise myself that I'm always going to side with the hopeful possibilities? Can I just promise myself I'm going to be on the side of arguing for solutions instead of arguing for why I can't overcome X obstacle or X challenge? I think we've all been together in coaching, I think, long enough at this point that we're starting to just self-identify and recognize, like, oh, that's probably something the answer is me. I can change that. I can think differently about that. So I think we're all getting kind of good at that. But yeah, I think just throughout the week, that's a helpful question for me. Another question I thought of is, where am I confusing personality with identity, with thought choices. So it's true, we all have a personality, but at times I think we confuse personality with like unchangeable, immovable identity. For example, I train on this all the time, but saying like, I'm a procrastinator, or I'm shy, or I'm a fly by the seat of my pants person. I'm not into structure. So the truth is we have like preferences, maybe personality preferences, but when we say I am that or I'm not that, we're agreeing to an identity. And that's a choice. To agree to an identity is a choice. And so I would also put that question out there of like, where am I confusing, optional things with identity? And where am I coming into agreement with things that I do not have to come into agreement to? Just this idea of like, I am not a morning person. That's another one that I'm having to question that thought pattern. Now, Taylor, 4 a.m. I'm with you. I don't know about 4 a.m. But you know what I mean? Like I've ruled out certain solutions that could help me with some of these, desires I have to be achieving at a higher level in any area. And then I rule out these solutions just because of things I assume are like part of my identity when really they're, choice thought patterns.
Mhm.
Yeah.
One thing I'll chime in about the early morning thing. Sorry, babe. One thing I realized about my littles, this was several years ago, is that it didn't matter what time I woke up. If I was up, they were up. And that was super frustrating to me. And so I just realized like once they're down for the night, they're actually pretty much down. And one exception would be like a newborn baby, but they play hard during the day. And in the mornings, it seemed like their little mom radars would go off if I was up. And so the solution that I found, even though I'm naturally a morning person, I've kind of trained myself to be a night owl because I knew that once I got them down, then I could be guaranteed that they would be asleep for, I don't know, an hour, 2, 3, 4. And it's not maybe the healthiest. The more I've learned about sleep patterns and circadian rhythms, and he's been reading some health books, I'm like, well, I suppose in heaven, my reward will be sleep for the deficit that I'm creating between, just life, business, ministry, homeschooling, a lot of children, babies, all those things. So I don't know if that encourages you or not, but I've had to shift my schedule a little bit to accommodate babies and toddlers. And I have a toddler right now that wakes up when I wake up, basically, doesn't she?
Or earlier. She wakes us
Or
up.
earlier. She's like pitter patter, pitter patter. Mm-hmm. Although I liked Carissa's boundary. I think you were one of them, the moms that I know that didn't allow their children to wake up until a certain time. And my sister-in-law and brother-in-law have kids, little children, and they have a special alarm clock, and that unless it says 700 and it's green, they can't wake up yet.
Yes, that was passed on to me from another mom who was like, yep, we've just always done that. So if anyone wants to chat with me about that, we can chat about it privately.
Carissa, Julia is asking about how do you juggle time with your hubby after kiddos are down, including working on business stuff at night? That's a great question.
Great question. And actually feeds perfectly into what I was thinking of saying, which is that we can't abandon setting intentions and scheduling our intentions. It's absolutely essential. Success is scheduled, period. That's a Brooke Hemingway quote. We can't abandon scheduling it, but we also have to embrace the fact that it has to be ever evolving, and we cannot be clinging to a schedule that is no longer applicable. And so almost on a weekly basis, I feel like I have to have a sit down with Chris and go, what's on our plate for the week? What maybe needs to be off the plate, but on the table, like it's a priority, but it's not on our plate immediately this week. And that this is, in terms of those 5 priorities you listed, Justin. So like what's on our plate with our business, our work, what's on our plate with our kids and with ourselves and with each other. What do we need to maybe move off the plate onto the table that, and then where are we creating those pockets of connection? I have to be willing to reevaluate it on a pretty weekly basis and just accept the fact that it's ever evolving. But not, I guess, not go from, okay, it's always changing, it's ever evolving, not go from there to like loosey goosey, oh, well, we'll just see what happens. Because when we do that, when we abandon intention, we are everything gets hijacked. The urgent takes precedent over the important. That's when you find yourself like, you're answering some incoming text from somebody that could totally go find that answer by themselves. And you're sitting there answering them when you haven't done 10 things that actually are more important, but you're just totally a slave to the moment, just what's coming in at the moment. So Julia, do you want to unmute and talk a little more about that? How does that hit you?
I think that is helpful. I think that I struggle because most of the time, so my job is a night job. And so I typically, when we're home, my days are with the girls. And then the way it used to be before I started doing my business, the evening times would be when Joel and I would be able to kind of hang out together. We have a little bit of a unique scenario though, because he works a lot from home. So we do get to see each other during the day, but like intentional time was always like at night. Right. And so definitely maybe talking with him about that and just kind of sitting down and saying like, because he hasn't complained, he's not a complainer. And like he probably would not even say anything, but I don't want that to pull apart that time because I think it's so important. So I think maybe just sitting down and really kind of getting an idea from him what he thinks, like a time frame that he thinks is important, whether it be like just hanging out for an hour after they go to bed and then using the other hour or so to just work on business stuff.
It's really important for you two to talk and tell each other how you feel connection with them, because it's probably different. And a lot of couples default into some sort of numbing entertainment rather than actual connection when you have time together. And so you've got to talk and say, how do you feel most connected to me? And then you take a turn and explain how you feel most connected to him, and then look at your schedule and find those pockets. But oftentimes we maybe have the pockets, but we're kind of squandering them on shows, which is not super connecting. And so, for example, like I can probably tell you that his answer is sex. That's one of them. But for me, for example, like while I'm maybe preparing dinner, I really like it if he is in the kitchen interacting with me and the kids instead of, watching a video on YouTube or something like that. So it's just a simple matter of like, I have to communicate that's a way that's a time where we can connect.
Yeah.
I love that you mentioned connecting or communicating. Sorry. I think that this business exposes things that maybe were always there, but this is just a way that it gets exposed. And so anytime you can communicate more clearly, that's a good thing. So like you even mentioning that he's not a complainer, but even you showing interest in what his feelings are or how he feels connected to you, and him verbalizing that's so good. Like I think I've been talking with the kids even about like what their love languages are, and so many of them, their primary love language is words of affirmation. I'm like, wow, I think we're not like filling their love tank enough, because it's easy to kind of just live life and, like Carissa was saying, squander little pockets of time. And it's interesting because we obviously work from home together all the time, and so it's kind of like you can be passing each other but not actually connecting. And so like I've called it the struggle of the juggle, because I feel like it is just something that we're always working on. And even today he's like, hey, we need to have a sit down and just look through our schedule. And so at least once, probably multiple times a week, we're we really make a point to connect on what's going on. When are we taking Maddie out for her birthday date? When are we going to go on a date? Even looking for even little things throughout the day, like he likes to sit in silence first thing in the morning. And so it's not helpful for me to go in and like start talking to him or say, hey, you want to go on a walk? Like, I'm ready to go on a walk. And he's like, I need to
Nope.
just like connect with Jesus and not have people talking to me first thing. So like, those are all good things to be finding out about our spouses. And if we know what fills their love tank, we're not going to be filling it with all these things that we think are filling it, but it's taking a lot of time, but isn't actually the thing that really helps us connect with them. So we do a scheduling meeting at least once a week, actually more than that, typically, because we have so many people, running around in circles with us.
Well, and we know at the beginning of every month is our date night.
Mm-hmm.
So like that's not negotiable. So we know that's going to be like the first, second, third of the month, somewhere in there. After the end of the previous month, you get to catch your breath and kind of regroup, and that's when we go on our date.
Mm-hmm.
And we go on the dates sometimes here and there throughout the month, sometimes depending on what's going on. But we know at the beginning of the month it's date night,
Mm-hmm.
and so that's like one of our non-negotiables. And we can talk a lot then, but we talk a lot throughout the week. We do a lot of scheduling meetings because they're, like I said, always changing.
One thing that we've realized that's helpful for boundaries just with our family and with our marriage is not doing Zooms every night. So
Yeah.
Trying to stack, like if I'm hosting individual events for people, I try to stack them all on like the same night so that we're not taking extra time. He started a gold training with people that are like senior silver to non-ranking senior golds. But we were looking at the schedule going, we really want to take another night of the week, which granted, it's just an hour out of the nightly schedule, but that's still a big chunk. It's like the go time for like all the bedtime routines. And so he's doing it at 11 a.m. on Thursdays. If people can't catch it at that time, they can catch the recording.
Yep.
So just looking for ways to help you prioritize the things most important. And also don't be afraid to ask your spouse even like, hey babe, would you be able to put the kids to bed on like Thursdays or whatever, Tuesdays and Thursdays? Even asking your spouse to do something like that frees you up to like plug in the evening, then do some work stuff. Mm-hmm. But then after that, then you have couple time. Also, I have been known, especially when I was first building my business, he was working full time and just crazy busy schedule, right? I would put the kids to bed, put hubby to bed, and then I would get back up and go do some work because my kids would wake up early if I woke up early.
And I was happy.
And he was happy.
I was
like,
happy.
Everybody, all the boxes were checked. So sometimes it's like getting creative like that too. And I know Brooke Hemingway has talked about that too. She's like, have girls ever heard of putting your husband to sleep? Yeah.
Pretty simple creatures.
Tucking them in for the night.
I have not heard that, but that's really
so one thing I wanted to mention real quick in light of that back to the work-life balance. One thing I've noticed with those 5 buckets I mentioned earlier, like my 5 priorities in life, when I've noticed that I have some sort of balance when I'm consistent. And I know I probably mention this every week, like consistency, but it really is the key. Mm-hmm. Like, so my 5 priorities, myself, like my quiet time in the morning, just so I can collect my thoughts, I can pray, I can breathe, I can have my cup of coffee, even if it's just 5 minutes, I'm good, right? So my priorities are me, Megan, the kids, business and finance, and our community. And so what I've noticed is if I can consistently touch all 5 of those, or at least the top 4, community is not, to me, it's not really in the top 4. It's important, but it's not as in my face as my family and my business, right? So, but what I've noticed that I have a lot more balance and I'm a lot happier if I can consistently touch those 4 areas of life each day. Mm-hmm. And if I can give myself some time, I'm good. If I can give some time to Megan throughout the day and even in the evening touches throughout the day, I'm good. Same with the kids, same with my business. The imbalance that I've found usually comes when things get crazy and things are out of balance. It's typically a result of inconsistency, to where I haven't done my business for 3 days, or I haven't balanced my checkbook for 2 months, And now, oh, I got to get it done today. Well, now all I get done today is the checkbook, which is good. But then I missed out on my quiet time. I missed out on my time with my wife. I missed out with the kids. And then you get into this crazy cycle. And the way to eliminate the majority of that craziness, not all, but the majority of it, is for us to be consistent in those areas that we call priorities in our life. If we can touch those things each day and just spend a little bit of time on those priority areas each day, there's a lot more balance that I've found in life, a lot more happiness, a lot less chaos and stress and shame.
We were cracking up, or I was at least internally, because before this, I was like, this is hilarious that we're doing this call right now, this month, and I'm feeling like kind of out of balance. It's just summertime stuff, like this, our schedule is freer, but still like, but in the freedom of it, it feels just like, I mean, we're doing a lot of stuff, we're having fun, but I'm just like, wow, I think it's time to get back into a routine. And I was telling him today, I'm like he had catching up to do on stuff, and I'm like, I need plug-in time too. Like if I get too many days in a row of like not being able to plug in, I'm just like kind of on the fly doing stuff, I start to feel crazy. And like, I'm not just doing plexus work, but like I need to schedule out and figure out what we're doing for homeschool curriculum and, you know, just life things. And so he's like, well, how many hours do you need? I'm like, I know I need 4 hours and I know where the time is going to go. He's like, okay, well, we got to get back on just our scheduling plan, which works when we work it, right? And so if you're feeling like me right now, it's okay. We have a fresh start. We can schedule out our day and get back to, you know, putting in those protected plexus times or however it works for your schedule, and you know, proceed with peace, because I do feel like planning brings peace to my heart, even if it's imperfect. It's better than not having a plan.
I love that. Plan and proceed with peace. I'm writing that down.
We totally forgot to open with prayer. Justin, do you want to wrap us up with prayer?
Yes.
It's time to wrap up.
Time to wrap up. We got to get off and move on to the next thing, right?
Mhm.
All right, let's pray. Father, we thank you for this day. We thank you for the opportunity we have to spend this time together. We thank you for this business. We thank you for our families. We thank you for the time that you have given to each one of us. I pray that you would help us to be good stewards of the time that you've given us on this earth.
Mhm.
Help us to know what the priorities are that you've given us in life. Help us to simplify and boil things down to, you know, the top 5 priorities in life, and help us to do those things well. Give us wisdom, give us discernment to know when to spend time on which thing. I pray you just fill our backbones with iron, help us to be strong, help us to be courageous as we tackle these things and try to be the best we can be at these areas. And we commit this to you in Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. 2 Peter 1 verse 3. Carissa prayed that at the start of one of our coaching sessions, and it has not left me. I'm so thankful for that. He has given to us, according to his divine power, has given unto us all things that pertain unto life and godliness. So I know that the Lord will give us grace as we're figuring out all these things, all the angles. So blessings on you guys. Thanks for hopping on. See you next week.